Morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Surviving Business. This is a podcast where we get delve deep into the tips and tricks on not only how to survive this crazy time that we've all found ourselves in, but to also thrive and to find out ways on how to actually manage and negotiate our way through this crazy time. So, look, we've had a couple of amazing weeks so far, and today is no different. I'm joined again by my colleague, my friend, my business partner, Mr. Ivor Locke. G'day, Ivor. How are you today, my friend?
Very well, Shane. Very well, Shane. It's been an incredible couple of last weeks to be able to see what's unfolding in the world and to be able to get some of the insights that we've had from all of our guests so far. It's just been very, very spectacular. And just to see there's a bit of a common theme running through as well, which is a very interesting thing to see as well. And just to see humanity, you know, one of the things that we looked at is that, you know, I don't think people have been this connected ever, in a way. We've been so incredibly focused on what we call the busyness of business that we haven't actually connected. And I think this is a time that we've actually really had time to sit still and to be confined to actually go and yearn to connect. And now we're actually connecting better than we've ever connected before. So it's very, very interesting.
It is amazing. There's that transition from human doing to human being, as they say. So we're actually starting to be humans again, which is quite an interesting thing. And overnight, we've had a couple of big things happen in the financial sector. Either Virgin Australia and Virgin Atlantic have both look like they're going into receivership. Oil prices hit $0, which is a huge thing. Actually went into the negative space. Mate, we're seeing things that we never thought we would see again never thought that we would see again in the simple thing of petrol prices dropping so dramatically now. I don't suppose it helps when no one can drive anywhere, but there's certainly some, firsts about to hit the world as we know it. And, everything that we thought we knew of 5 weeks ago just seems like a distant memory, doesn't it?
I mean, who would have thought that oil price would be zero?
Yeah.
I mean, just about 18 months ago, it was over $120 a barrel. Now it's at zero. I mean, it actually went negative 40, which the oil producers are actually paying people to actually take the oil off them. So it's that crazy. I mean, notwithstanding that, I read another article. The car industry at the moment, the oil industry is suffering. The car industry is suffering just as much.
Yeah.
So, this is going to have a repercussion in so many different areas. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how it plays out. And then, of course, there's going to be great opportunities as well. In a way.
Yeah, look, and we really do see that it's an opportunity for us to really relook the way that we've done everything. When we look back at the industrial age as a whole, and we see it actually it transformed during the war. I think it was World War II or World War I. I think it was World War II, where we had to transition into more efficient fuels, and the entire world seemed to transition within 3 months based off the need, the necessity. Do you see that happening, Ivor, that maybe there's an opportunity here for us as a planet to say, well, maybe fossil fuels isn't the way to go. Maybe using oil isn't as beneficial as what we thought it was. And maybe this is our opportunity to correct a lot of our ways and change the way that we do things.
I think so. I mean, for a very long time, there wasn't really substantial proof to see whether, this whole thing about the carbon dioxide getting into the atmosphere was going to be a major problem. We knew that it was. Inherently, we could see the smog across the cities. But right now, it's the first time in India that they can see the Himalayas.
Yeah.
It's the first time that I think, China can actually, a lot of the Chinese citizens, even though they're walking around with masks at the moment, they're not walking around with masks because of the air. They're walking around with masks because of COVID-19. So it's very interesting to see. I'm not a particular greenie per se that actually goes out there and says, hey, we need to save the planet. But maybe this is the way that the planet is saying, hey, you're not going to save me, but I'm going to save myself in a
Yeah,
way. So maybe this
everyone
is part
go
of
to
the
your room.
ecosystem in
Have
a way.
we've been sent to our room for 3 months? Is that what it is? Just to think about what we've done to it?
Well, I think we're going to be sent to our room for a little bit longer than 3 months.
Mate, excited though to be here with you again today and to delve into this. Mate, we have an amazing guest today, Ivo. Do you mind sharing who have we got?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, she's the founder of and CEO of eWedded, a resale marketplace for the wedding community. So that's going to be very interesting because I don't know how many people are getting married right now, but it's going to be an interesting one. She's the author of Happily Altered After and host of the Happily Altered After podcast. She was previously in the fashion industry for 22 years. Oh my goodness. Age 16 of those as a wedding professional. Her career in bridal began with Vera Wang at a flagship store in New York City in 2001. She owned one of the largest retail wedding businesses in the country. She purchased a fledgling business in 2004 and grew it to a staggering multi-million-dollar company. The portfolio of wedding businesses included 6 retail stores and a wedding planning company, bridal shows, and a magazine as well.
Wow.
She expanded the company with the opening of a second location in 2015. Maya acquired 3 additional bridal shops and rebranded it as the House of Maya Bridal Salons. Maya, you've done so much, and welcome to the show. We have Maya Holihan, ultimately. Have I said that right?
It's Holihan, but that's okay. Everybody adds a U. It's fine. I used to get my first name wrong. Now they get my last name wrong. So I'm totally so used to it.
I got this one thing about names that everybody says, so how do you say your name? And I go, however way it comes out your mouth. Because,
Exactly.
I work across the globe, and if the one thing that I've let go of is people pronouncing my name right, or what I would perceive be correct ultimately.
I say to people, as long as it's nice, I'll answer to it.
There you go.
It's fine.
It's definitely great to have you on the show here this morning, and we really appreciate you taking your time to join us and to join our guests and to share your wisdom. It's an amazing resume that you have there, and we'll delve into that deeply. But first of all, I would like to ask, where are you in the world and what's happening in your neck of the woods right now?
Right. So I am in Virginia Beach, Virginia, in the United States. It's 7 o'clock in the evening here. It's almost my bedtime. No, I'm just kidding. It's almost cocktail hour is really what it is.
Yeah, there you go.
And, kind of like the rest of the world where we've slowed down, we're forced to analyze how we navigate through each day. Life as we know it is in upheaval. And so we're all working to adapt to our new lives. And for some of us, it's balancing business and life and children. And for others, it's a myriad of other things. I'm in the boat of, raising 2 teenage children. I have a husband who's in the military. We're a Navy family. So he's been very involved actually in getting the Navy reservists, helping with the efforts in New York City. And I'm getting ready to launch my next business. So we've got a lot going on.
And obviously being part of the wedding business and being a long time in that industry, you would see a massive shift in your industry right now, right? I mean, like it's almost like we were just speaking about it briefly, but you would have seen a lot of big plans just go straight out the window or have to be adjusted dramatically. How are you dealing with your clients, and not just the financial aspect, but the psychology in behind that?
Sure. Well, it's interesting. I don't actually have clients yet because my company hasn't launched. So what I'm trying to do is be a resource for my colleagues who actually have clients and helping them through, this really trying time. And we'll get into this a little bit deeper, but, when I had my wedding retail business, I went through a major financial crisis that lasted almost 18 months. And ultimately I had to close my doors in 2017. So I know what it's like to lead a business through crisis. I know what it's like to wake up each morning and not know what it entails and if my business is going to be here the next day. So I'm really just trying to help them see beyond, the end of their nose, and keep them calm and composed. Because what's unique about the wedding industry professionals that it may not be like any other industry is that many couples are not fully canceling their weddings. They're postponing their weddings. So for wedding businesses, not only are they getting the hit now, but they're going to take another financial hit the end of this year and in 2021, because the couples that have already paid to do business with them are now taking the dates that they could potentially sell to other couples 6 months, 9 months, 12, and 16 months down the road. The average engagement here is 16 months. So it's I get a lot of people calling me, and texting me, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great. I'm trying to lift a business off the ground, which has its own unique challenges. So I'm really just trying to be a resource for the people that are, for the first time ever in a crisis, that they have no idea how to work through.
Yeah. And when you look at, especially in this crazy period right at the moment, are you seeing any statistics coming out? I know that we were speaking about the other day that the divorce rate has gone through the roof recently. People are actually staying at home with their significant other and actually finding out very quickly whether or not they are meant to be together forever, right? It's one of those things that it's almost like like the Stockholm syndrome in a way. Some people are going to get closer, and then other people are just deciding, well, hang on a second, you're not the person, or you chew too loud, or whatever it may be, and getting crazy about little things. How do you manage that sort of thing? Are we seeing people changing plans, like literally changing plans?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that twofold. I think, and I've said this sheepishly over the years, that the divorce rate actually helps wedding pros. It's unfortunate, but I mean,
Right.
I was in the industry for so long. I actually had recurring brides. I had women that came and bought their gown from me twice, or even for a third time. So while you don't want to see people go through a divorce, it's certainly not something that I'm, cheer for. It is a reality. I'm married twice. I was divorced and remarried. And I do think that when people are forced together, particularly in such a traumatic experience, because let's face it, this is trauma. And it might be a different level of trauma depending on who you are, but we didn't choose, right, to be in the existence that we're in right now together. So I think that's definitely going to, we're going to see the divorce rate increase with that. And there are professionals that are actually saying, therapists that are saying, we're going to see more people getting divorced, unfortunately. Now, I read an article today about couples who are planning, and one of the things that has always sort of been a challenge with the wedding industry is you get people that have these grand ideas. They want, $1 million wedding, but they don't want to spend $1 million for it, right? And I'm seeing more couples, particularly the bride women, putting things into perspective. They're realizing they didn't need all the pomp and circumstance. They didn't need all the lavishness. They didn't need all of the extravagance. All they needed was their mate. Right. And so I do think, I interviewed a couple of wedding planners the other day for my podcast. And one of the wedding trends is micro weddings. So they're really just scaled down in terms of how many people are being invited, with still, the beauty and the romance. And I think we're going to see smaller affairs. I do. I think we're going to see more intimate weddings that are really focused on the love between the two people, and not necessarily, we have to have 300 people at our wedding.
Have we seen our first virtual wedding yet? Has there been
yeah.
a wedding on Zoom? Oh, okay. All right. They're already happening. Okay.
We've seen engagements on Zoom. We've seen proposals on Zoom.
Wow.
It's interesting. I had a friend post, I saw her post on Facebook earlier today, and she said, is it just me, or am I seeing more ring advertisements, like engagement ring advertisements? So I'm like, okay, these jewelry companies are getting smart. They know that either two people are going to come together, right, and they're gonna be ready to tie the knot, so they want people to buy engagement rings, or they're preparing for that couple
Yes.
that's going to break up, and new love will be found, and hopefully there'll be a ring purchase somewhere down
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Well, I don't think any lockdown is going to keep people apart in reality.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, the thing is, when we really think about something like virtual, it's almost having a long distance affair or having a long distance relationship in a way. And I mean, going back in time, and this shows my age a little bit, maybe with a little bit of gray hair. I used to spend hours upon hours on the telephone, and we should live down the road. So
Mhm.
it's this is just another form, but it's amazing. I mean, when we look at it, I could only dream of being able to do what we're doing exactly now. Being in so many different locations and having this. So it's a very interesting thing. So right now, Maya, I just want to I want to sidetrack a little bit, because you said something really interesting really early on when you said you had that little episode happen in 2017 when the business kind of like collapsed underneath you. Can you explain to us kind of like a little bit of your emotions as you were swinging downwards, and then how you were able to come out of it? Because I think that would be really interesting, because I think we're kind of in that swing at the moment. We're not quite out of it just yet, and I think there's a lot of people in that uncertainty. But so if you could just maybe give a little bit of your emotional, feeling, how you went through it, and how you managed to come out of it.
And I will say it was an emotional roller coaster, without a doubt. But there was sort of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde aspect to it, because as a leader of a business, I had 35 employees when I started going through my financial crisis. I had to still be the face of that company. I mean, my name was on the business. I was the face of the business. It's not like I could go hide in the back room and try to solve the problems in private. I was a very public figure. I still am. I'm very, very, very involved in our community. And so for me, during the day, during working hours, I had to be on. I had to have a smiling face. I had to be, present myself well. The hair had to be done. The makeup had to be done, right? Putting one foot in front of the other, and showing a level of resilience and perseverance that I didn't even know I had, to be honest with you, because internally I was crumbling. The thought of closing my doors was it literally was my nightmare come true. And at night, I had my close friends and my husband and my family around me. It was, yet I still had to shield the kids, right? Because you don't want them to see you stressing out. That was really, really important. And while they saw some of it, I really did try to shield them from a lot of my stress. But it was usually late at night when I lost it. And I cried. I fretted. I couldn't turn my mind off. I mean, gosh, for over a year and a half, I didn't sleep at all, barely. But I was committed to turning a corner, and I absolutely believe that frame of mind plays a huge impact on how we ultimately get through any situation. And while I did close my doors, I never lost a sense of hope. I never lost a sense of positivity. I didn't beat myself up. That was one thing. I did not beat myself up. And I didn't let anyone else beat me up either, because let's face it, owning a business is really hard. It's really hard. And very few people have the guts to put themselves out there. So, I just, it is definitely a juggling act of emotions, but I don't know. For me, it was, I knew no matter what was going to happen, and maybe it was my faith in God. I knew no matter what happened, I was going to get out of it a stronger, better, wiser person. I knew that.
Do you find, I went through a business almost collapsing. It's on its bare knees, but it basically dissolved all around me. And I found one of the hardest parts was that my identity was attached to the actual business, that it wasn't so much that all of a sudden the business had transformed from a vehicle to actually get me to a place of somewhere else, or to bring things into my life, to all of a sudden I found it was really attached to my identity, to the point that when it started to fall, my identity was the one that was starting to crumble. Did you find that, even though that sounds terrifying, that that's actually quite a liberating experience to be able to release that identity back to you and be able to transform you as the main character into something more?
Absolutely. Again, I think the wedding industry has this veneer, that people are just in awe of. And the way that I sort of built my business, and again, I started at Vera Wang. People just love the fact that I started at Vera Wang. I have a very glossy, shiny background, which I came from New York City to, a small area of Virginia. It was like immediately people put me on a pedestal, right? Immediately people were riding my coattails. They expected so much from me. There was absolutely a persona that I had to present. And I mean, that was really hard when I was going through the exponential growth that I was going through. But when it was all said and done, I got myself back. And people got to really see me for more than just the girl with the wedding gowns. I mean, I had to make some really, really challenging business decisions. And my attorney tells me to this day, he said, I have clients who have male clients who have been in business for 30 to 50 years who couldn't have handled what you went through in those 18 months. They would have thrown the towel in and moved out of town, and I actually had somebody ask me when it all crumbled, because it also crumbled very publicly. Right. So what's different for so many business owners now, and it's a real opportunity for people to come together, is that everybody's going through it. There isn't a company right now that isn't feeling the effects of this pandemic and us being in isolation. When I was going through my crisis, I was going through it alone. I had nobody going through it with me, right? And so it would have broken most people, I think. It really would have broken a lot of people. And so, I've come through it, again, not so much just a woman in the wedding industry, but really a true business person, really a true entrepreneur. I mean, I tell people all the time, I got a real life MBA. What I learned in those years of crisis, there isn't a degree on this planet that could have prepared me for what I went through. And I think there are many business owners right now that are thinking the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry,
yeah,
I was going to say, also, do you think that maybe this gives you the opportunity, especially in today's day and age, because you don't have that business attached to you like you would have if it had succeeded, that you're now in a very different position to be able to take advantage? And I say advantage, not to take advantage of anyone else, but to really be able to leapfrog a lot of the so-called competitors in this environment, which are now going through a crisis for probably their very first time. It gives you a unique advantage to be able to maximize on your strengths and move forward through this period.
Absolutely. And, to talk a little bit about eWedded, because it ties into your question, eWedded came to me in the height of my crisis. I was in dire straits, and I'll never forget the moment I was sitting in my living room on my sofa, and I was probably 2 weeks away from closing my doors. Luckily, a miracle happened and I didn't have to do it at that point, but I thought I was going to have to. And I kept thinking, there's gotta be a way for me to make more money. I gotta find a way. I have all this product, right? Because I, as you know, went through major acquisitions. I acquired 3 of my competitors. I was already a big business. My first store was 10,000 square feet. I had $250,000 of discontinued merchandise sitting in closets and storage units that I was like, if I could just find a global way to unload this product, to find another revenue stream that could be consistent and continual, then this is part of the solution, right? And I took that idea and I expanded on it. I made it bigger than me. So I started talking to other bridal shops. I started talking to designers, to big brands, and asking them, what do you do? I mean, like many industries, the product excessiveness is insane in the wedding industry. I mean, and I heard you guys talking at the beginning about, the environment. We throw 26 billion pounds of textile into the global landfill every single year.
Wow.
The fashion industry is so guilty of contributing to our environmental suffering. And when I started talking to some of the bigger businesses and asked them, how do you handle your excess product? They told me they either burn it or they send it on containers back to the country they had it manufactured. So none of that is good for the environment either. And that's really when the wheels started turning. And I thought, okay, this could be something. And I asked them, if I created this marketplace, would you use it? And they were like, absolutely, we would use it. And it just started morphing from there. I tried to get it to market under my brand in 2016, and I just couldn't align the struggles with my retail business, with getting the funding for the marketplace. And unfortunately, when the retail business went up in flames, everything went up in flames. And so I had to shelf it, and then I had to rebrand it. But, the relevance of the marketplace today is so much greater than it was 4 years ago, simply because these businesses now need an outlet. They're closed. They are sitting on product. These couples there's going to be over 1 million weddings affected by this pandemic in the United States. And I'm sure the numbers are, crazy all across the world. So I believe timing is everything. And it sounds strange, but I think that the e-wedded needed the pandemic. It's crazy, but it's
yeah. Well, I think it's actually quite interesting that you bring it up, because we're actually having a conversation in our last podcast about sharing resources. I mean, It was like, garden utensils, mowers, whippersnippers, whatever they are, and it makes so much sense, but it's the same thing like even car sharing. I mean, it's like when I really think about it, my car that I have drives from home to daycare, maybe to school and back home, and that's about it. Right. Because I work from home, so it never goes more than like maybe 10 miles or 15 kilometers. So it's a very interesting thing that you come up with, and I think it will work. It's just that people are going to get used to being okay with it not being brand new.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And people, the number of people that are being okay with things not being new is growing every single day. The resale industry has more than doubled in 10 years. It's the $600 billion a year industry now. It's insane. And it's no different for wedding consumers. It's one of my stores. So I had 6 stores. One of them was a consignment shop, and it was my fastest growing shop. So that was part of the validation that women certainly didn't have a problem buying wedding gowns that were worn once by somebody else. Particularly, I'm focusing on the luxury end of the industry. And, and I witnessed this when I worked for Vera Wang, is we had the aspiring Vera Wang brides. They wanted to wear Vera, but they didn't want to pay $10,000 for the dress. Yeah. So now they can use eWedded as a way to find, their luxury for less, right? It's the champagne taste and the beer budget.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love that. I love that, and I think it's definitely. I mean, as you said, I have a look even at kids' clothes. Our kids grow up so fast, and you've got 2 teenagers, and this as well. It's like, by the time that they've gone from 3 to 4, they've outgrown their clothes, or even 6 months, or even 3 months. And the clothes are still basically brand new.
Oh, there's plenty that still have tags on them at that age. We get excited about having children, especially if you're close. When I gave birth to my daughter, her, the grandparents that are local, this was their first grandbaby. And so she went insane buying Sophia clothes. I mean, so when I was, sending her clothes to consignment shops, I'd say 60% of them still had tags on them. That girl had no chance to wear those. We get caught up, and weddings is one of those things that people get really caught up in, and they buy emotionally, which, yay for me that people shop emotionally.
Yeah, yeah.
All rationale gets thrown out the window.
Yeah.
We also, Ivan, we were looking, we had another gentleman on the other day that was talking about like the major shifts in what we're seeing at the moment with the current crisis that's around, is that you'll see businesses that are aggregators, meaning that they provide a place where other businesses can come and do that. And I really see, is this, that's the space that you're going in, is that these other businesses can then bring their consignments into this store. So it's one thing, it's great for the consumer, but we're seeing this right across the world now, like, as the medical industry, they're trying to find platforms where all of the doctors can come in and actually do a virtual practice. And, you're seeing this right across the entire industries, every industry that we're looking at, whether it be yoga instructors, anything at all that can be done online now. We're starting to see this space of aggregators really start to take off. Now, I remember when the internet first started, and I am showing a bit of my age, but the thing is that no one knew where to find anything. It was like this big wild west of all of this information, and you started to get companies like Wikipedia and a few of these other companies actually started to collect information and bring it into one space and put it in a way that people could get to it. And those companies turned into billion-dollar giants, tens of billions, hundreds of billion-dollar giants. So this really is the way of the future in a lot of industries, not just the wedding industry, but a lot of industries that are out there at the moment. You've been playing with this idea for a lot longer than getting it up and running. Like how long is it? You said that it started around 2 weeks before you started to close. When was that? Was that back in 2017, did you say?
The idea came to me in June of 2016, actually,
16.
and I didn't end up closing until August of 2017. And that is because I was able to get like a lifeline, so to say, from an angel investor. And this sort of, any advice that I have for people that are in crisis right now is don't be afraid to ask for help and put your pride aside. And I got to a moment where I had to reveal my struggles to some of my closest industry friends and ask them if they could connect me with people that had money. And I was fortunate enough that one of my colleagues knew of some folks who were very, very successful business people and had lived the life of a true entrepreneur. They'd had it all and they'd lost it all, and now they had it all again. And they believed in giving back. And we went into it knowing that the company probably wasn't going to get saved, and they didn't have any interest in coming in as partners because they didn't know the industry, and I can totally respect that. But we needed to get product to brides. They were trying to soften the collateral damage that I was going to go through, and I am forever indebted to them for that. Wow. Because I say to people all the time, it was bad, but it could have been real bad. I mean, it could have been really, really bad. And the thing is, even when you're struggling, you can't stop being resourceful. And if you can't do it, if you're feeling too much stress, right? If it's just bearing down on you, then you've got to find another champion within your organization who can do it for you. Because when you stop, looking for the resources, guess what? You stop, you go out of business.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find, Maya, now that you've actually, you've been through that massive pull in and, that stress and going through it, you said that it's made you a stronger entrepreneur and a stronger businesswoman. I mean, and I always say to people, because I think a lot of people get through it and they're scared to go through it. Mm-hmm. It's almost like they're disappointed to go through it. And I say sometimes at the moment, it's like, Shane's been through it, I've been through it, you've been through it. Right now, I mean, what do you say to people? I mean, when they entering that space and they know it's almost like they're on that downward slope, okay? and you know that they're going to slide, and you can't help them. I mean, you can't pull them back. You just got to let them slide, and you know that it's going to be okay for them. What do you say to them in that space?
Well, yeah, the first thing I try to do is I try to get them to understand that it's not their fault, even if it is their fault, right? Because I made bad decisions. I got to where I was because I made bad decisions, and I own them. But to forgive themselves, because I feel like a lot of it comes from a place of shame, and that they have failed. And I have failed myself, and I have failed my family, and I have failed my customers, and I have failed my employees. And we've got to move the mindset from failure to it's a reset, right? And are people going to be impacted by it? Absolutely, they're going to be impacted by it. But no business is worth your life. No business is worth you beating yourself up to the point where you can't find your way out of it. There's gonna be something greater on the horizon. And if anything, what are the lessons that you can learn from this? And that's usually what I ask them is, what are the lessons that you have already learned from what you're going through that you can take into your next venture, right? Because you're an entrepreneur, there's gonna be a next venture. There's absolutely going to be a next venture. So, I mean, that's really what it is. And again, I think it goes back to state of mind. It's really disheartening to see business people come down so hard on themselves and beat themselves up, because again, I just think that if running a business was easy, everybody would do it. We'd all have businesses, and we know that it's not. And the other piece of advice I always give is insulate yourself from your haters.
Yes.
Or insulate yourself from the media. So right now I tell people, don't watch the news. Don't even watch it. You're going to get all riled up, right? And so when I lost my company, the media jumped on me like white on rice. And I went from the golden girl to the evil woman in Hampton Roads who couldn't deliver wedding gowns to her brides. It was horrific. And I mean, like I said, I even had a friend ask me if I was going to move out of the area. And I'm like, why would I move out of the area? I took a risk and it didn't pay off. Like, no, I'm not going to move out of the area. So you have to surround yourself by people that truly know your character, because it will get attacked, and your reputation will get tarnished. But the people that know you inherently will love you all the way through it, and they'll love you without judgment. And that's, so you really just have to kind of insulate yourself from the negative noise around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
When the life of an entrepreneur is a strange one, because it's a balancing act, isn't it, between the I and the we. So it's like this challenge that you're trying to control everything and that you're in control, and then the universe or God gives you a good slap across the side of the ear and says, hang on a second, there's more people than just yourself. And then you're trying to balance. And even when you spoke about the friends, your guardian angels that helped you out, they had lost it all, and then they had rebuilt, and then they feel like it's their responsibility, or not their responsibility, but their gift to be able to give back. And I noticed that, even, I can really sense a sense of we-ness from yourself. It's not just a matter of being able to build a business, but to be able to build a business that can help more people than just yourself. And do you think that that is probably one of the greatest gifts that right now you can feel young entrepreneurs or seasoned entrepreneurs really feeling desperate in this time? Do you think that it's really important for them to take the focus off of themselves and start to maybe just project it to something bigger than themselves, so that they can actually be able to negotiate a bit better?
Absolutely. I think we do a disservice if we're not helping people that are feeling the pull or the struggle, because if they go down, I mean, that's commerce that's lost. Those are great minds that are lost. They're disenfranchised people that shouldn't be disenfranchised. So I feel like any of us that have had, a long enough career to learn a handful of lessons, and for some of us more than a handful of lessons, particularly right now, it's our time to not think about ourselves, not think about our businesses, because we're going to be okay, right? Whether we get through it still in business or not, if you've lived it before, you're going to be okay. So I really just am extending, my ear, my knowledge and my time to people that have never walked this walk before. And I think if we can all band together and be a resource, however that is, we all come through it greater. We all come through it stronger, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be a much bigger force to reckon with, and we're going to be smarter business people. We're going to be much, much better, conductors of business.
Yeah. I think more importantly than just better business people, I think we're going to be better human beings.
Absolutely.
Because I really see it at the moment, and you make the point so well there, because in reality, when we really have a look at everybody at the moment, like going through the struggle, it's the first time that I've seen the whole world go through the struggle.
Yeah.
Like I've coached for 15 years, and I've never ever seen every single part of the world actually, in this, in a way.
Yeah.
And because of this, I think, we were talking, Shane, a little bit earlier on, in a couple of our earlier podcasts about the awakening and about the consciousness, and I think there's hasn't been another collective episode besides the world wars that have created this. And I think world wars have actually created separation, and wars have created separation, where this is seemingly actually bonding countries.
Mate, this is
actually bringing them together, which is very interesting.
It's very different. We spoke at length about the spiral dynamics, and spiral dynamics is that raise of level of consciousness that you see across the planet. It's been written about many times, but that also goes from I to we to I to we to I to we. So when you actually look at anything is about a war, even though it seems like a collective we, it's actually about I, because it's this country against that country. It's me against them, right? So what we're actually experiencing right at the moment, and you can see this right at the moment as well, as there's a faction of human society that are trying to cause a division. It's us versus them. They caused this. They are the problem. They're this, we are the solution. But effectively, you're seeing a larger part of the population now go to we need to sort this out for us, meaning no longer a boundary between the United States and Australia or wherever. It's like us as human beings. How do we go forward together as a species? And I'm finding that, and like in business, the analogy rings true. The greatest challenge that you face is often the greatest gift looking back that you could possibly be given.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you on that. Yeah, it's, I've had conversations over the past couple of days with people, because I don't know how it is where you are, but where we are, there's a definite sort of like pull. You have people that want to open back up immediately, and then people that are like, no, we can't open back up immediately. And, all of these conspiracy theories, and I feel the pain I understand the mentality for both arguments fully, but the reality is that we have to make decisions that are best for the greater good, that are best for all of mankind, right? We've got to make decisions that bring humanity to the forefront. And I think in business, we're seeing that on a daily basis. And it really is a beautiful thing to see. Now, if we can just pull that into the health crisis and unfortunately the politics behind it all, then I think we shape ourselves up, nicely to navigate through this. But it's a tightrope walk. I mean, it really is. This has never happened ever in the history of the world, I don't think, at this level, where it's a health crisis, it's an economic crisis, it's an academic crisis, it's a social crisis. I mean, like, what isn't being affected?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Toilet paper rolls. Toilet.
I thought toilet paper would be the hottest commodity around.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. I said to my wife, I said, why is it that people suddenly needed toilet paper?
Yes.
Like, there could be, you can't eat toilet paper. I mean, I thought it would have been baked beans or bread or tin food or something, but toilet paper, I just don't get it at the end of the day.
No, that's a mystery. I think in Australia in particular, because 98% of the population live within a kilometre of the ocean. So it's I don't know. I do not understand that need, but look, weird things happen in weird times, and we're certainly going through a weird time. And let's hope. And I believe. Even though it seems very disastrous at the moment, there's a lot of challenges out there in the world, like even going through that that business cycle of losing the identity. Maybe that's exactly what we're doing as a planet. Maybe we're going through this, we're in control moment, to all of a sudden, holy smokes, we're not actually in control, and taking a reality check. And maybe we walk out of this a lot more humble and a lot more grateful and a lot more appreciative for other people that are in the planet. And, looking back at this scenario 10, 15, 20 years from today, what does that look like for our children? Do they look back at this and say that was a defining moment in the history of Earth that needed to happen so that we took this as a progressive step? Or do they look back and say, geez, they really dropped the ball there? And when we bring this back into a business analogy, what point, Maya, did you realize that the fight to keep the business open, let's go back to 2017 for a moment. At what point does it stop being, let's try and keep the doors open, let's try and keep this going, to no, it's time, wrap it up, and let's look for something new?
Yeah. When the well is dry is when it's time. For me, I had, again, I clamored for funding to find either investors or partners, to sell. I tried to sell one of my stores as a way to save the business. I mean, there wasn't really a rock I didn't turn over. And when I got the call from sort of that last, hurrah ditch effort that they were not going to come through, immediately I went into, okay, what's the exit plan? And I called my banker. I had a bank loan, a very large one. And my banker and I were very close. And this is another piece of advice that I give people, is if you are tied to debt in any way, particularly with a banking institution, you can't bury your head in the sand, because they will not be kind to you in the end. You have to be very communicative. You have to be extremely honest and transparent. And sometimes you got to deliver the bad news. And I always had to deliver the bad news. I can't pay my loan. I can't do that. But I always went with, I can't pay my loan, but this is what I'm working on. And these are the new projections. And this is the new plan. I always had that. And when that ran out, I called my banker and said, it's time. So what's the exit strategy? And I'm giving you my business. And wow, the way they handled it was unprecedented. They were so gracious. They were so extraordinarily helpful. They actually came in and operated my business for 30 days as the new owners, to fulfill the needs of my clients, and to keep the parts of the operation open that needed to be open, again, to minimize the collateral damage. That is unheard of. That when you turn a company over to a bank, they come and lock it and board it up. and people say, and they paid my staff. They paid my staff for 30 days. The staff members that had to continue to be on payroll, they paid them for 30 days. And people ask me all the time, how did you do it? And I said, because the second I felt like this might not be going my way, I immediately engaged them in the conversation. I had to. They couldn't give me any more money. I mean, I was leveraged. And they even told me which money to take and which money not to take. Right. Unfortunately, I got so desperate at one point, I took bad money. And so another thing I say to people is, not all money is good money. Do not take it. out of desperation, you're going to put the nail in the coffin a lot faster. So that was a lesson that I had to learn. But I got them they became part of the team. They became part of the conversation. And I'll never forget my banker saying, "We're really sad. We were really rooting for you. We were really pulling for you. We saw the work that you were doing."
Yeah, it's look, it's a very tough time, and there's going to be people out there at the moment that are going through exactly that. Looking back, just at my own situation, I can only speak for myself. I actually look back and think that when you talk about bad money, I actually started to tip all my own personal finances into the same hole that was never ever going to close. And looking back now, I sort of wonder why I fought so hard, and that the moment that what I should have, like, one of the biggest mistakes that I feel I took was that I just didn't look at it like a vehicle and with no emotional attachment, and maybe step out of it a lot earlier than what I did. That I, instead of just the business going down, I went down with it at the same time, trying to do the honorable thing, but in fact, probably doing myself a disservice. Do you think that there's a little bit of truth to that, and that some business owners out there could probably look at where their situation is right now, and that they maybe have to really look at their business as a business rather than a child or a baby or a part of your identity?
Absolutely, 100%. And I've posed that question to a number of people. I've said, take the emotion out of it, take your blood, sweat, and tears out of it, because that's one thing as entrepreneurs. It's all the years and the time and the blood, and this, we all think our businesses are valued way more than they really are. And I try to get very tactical with them about the numbers, right? Let's play with the numbers. Is it going to cost you more to try to get through this than it is to just walk away right now? Right? I can't answer that for you. You might not even be able to answer that for you, but that's a great question to ask your attorney, your accountant, your CFO, your bank, whoever it is. You got to start crunching numbers right now. Okay.
Yeah.
And because otherwise it's going to get really messy. And that's what happened with me, was just like what you said, Shane. I wanted to be the warrior, right? I wanted to fight the good fight, and I had an obligation to brides. So that was, again, I wasn't selling jeans or tires.
Yes.
I was selling dreams. And so there was a level of pressure that I had to come through with. But in that, I did lose sight of let's step back and look at the business, because I really feel like, had I done that earlier, I probably could have filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy and reorganized the business with my tail between my legs. And there would have been a little bit of media, and it would have, probably been a little bit messy, but I would have been able to reorganize the business, and I would have been able to save it. I didn't do that. I kept fighting. I kept thinking about my brides and my employees and my family. All of that was clouded by the actual business. And ultimately, I ended up having to file a Chapter 7 and lost everything. So, I walked away with nothing, but barely the shirt off of my back. And we had to completely reset our lives. And so, yes, I think that's a huge mistake of entrepreneurs, is that we put the emotion, we put our people, we put our customers, we put our families, right, before actually dissecting the business piece of it. And I think the reason why we do that, and this is another piece of advice that I give, my biggest mistake when people say to me, what would I have done differently? I should have put together an advisory board. When the first opportunity came to me to buy a competitor, I should have brought in advisors. And I didn't bring in advisors until it was too late. And I really had some of the most brilliant business people in this area as advising me. And I feel firmly that if I had brought them in before I ever took one step in growth and acquisition, I'd still have those businesses today.
Absolutely.
That's a massive tip right there, isn't it? I mean, like like when my businesses grew back in the day, I went very quickly. We went from like a $200,000 turnover to $22 million in like 9 months. And we were growing exponentially. And then all of a sudden ended up with 26 locations. And I was working very hand in hand actually with Ivor during that period. I was on the Tony Robbins Platinum trip, had lots of high ranking business owners around me. And a lot of people said, how did you get that level of growth? And I jokingly say, I realized I was too stupid to know. So it was almost like I took the ability of trying to figure it all out. I didn't even have a high school certificate, you know? So it was one of those things that I looked around me and thought, all of these people know what they're doing. Why don't I just ask questions? And the moment that I got to the position where I thought I was smart enough to run it all myself was also the same moment, ironically, that it started to slip out from underneath me again. And I think that is it comes back to the entire, seems like the topic of today is, you know, the moment you shift from I to we, you have also that tendency to slip back to I. And in the moment that you do that is a downward slope. And yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Maya, you know, the great thing with it, you know, you had to go through this all by yourself. You know, the great thing with it at the moment for everybody's going through this at the same time.
Yes.
So just know this, it's a collective. And I would say at the moment, if your business right now is on the edge and a little bit more over the edge, and you'd know when it's more over the edge or not, it's probably a good time to actually close it, because right now you can say, well, COVID-19 did it to me at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. I was saying to one of my really good friends the other day, I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity to blame it on something other than the fact that you mismanaged your business. Nobody will know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't have that luxury. You know, I mean, obviously, I tell you to own it, right? Own where you went wrong. You have to. That's part of growing in business is you have to. Because here's the thing: if you didn't learn anything, you shouldn't go and start another business.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
Exactly. Well,
if you walked out of it saying it was everybody else's fault but mine, you're not an entrepreneur.
yeah. Well, one of our second largest airlines here in Australia, and airline that Shane and I actually use quite a lot, which is a bit of a shame. But I mean, they've just got into voluntary liquidation. So. You know,
that's Virgin. Virgin are big in the US too, aren't they?
No, actually, well, they actually sold out to Alaska, I think. So so it's really interesting. The brand is actually it's just integrating across the globe. So obviously whatever business model they're actually using isn't strong enough.
And ironically, you're seeing Richard Branson this morning putting his island up as collateral to try and save the airline. So it doesn't matter what stage you are in a business cycle, you're starting to see the exact same mistakes. You know, all of a sudden, this gentleman could go from one of the richest person on the planet to losing his own personal wealth, trying to save a business that he designed in an airport because he was late for a holiday and decided to build his own airline. So, you know, what started off as a good idea now becomes his identity, and how far is he willing to lose and what is he willing to lose to try and maintain that? It'll be interesting to watch.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Maya,
business books written about this. I mean, I'm a little jealous. All of the upcoming college students and grad students that get to go through business school and learn from us, because there's going to be some really triumphant and also tragic business lessons from what we're going through. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, look, as I say, I mean, Uber came out of this, Airbnb came out of this, so there's a lot of a new generation of businesses coming out of it, and I truly believe right now as a collective we're using the internet more, we're using this opportunity more. So I just see that. I mean, even with the C-suite network early on today, when we actually did the whole thing with. It was the first time they ever did something like that, and they had 300 people on a call, which was just amazing in a way.
Yeah.
You know, But I think the big thing is, Maya, I just want to thank you so much for being able to come here and share your story with us today. You know, and I think there's so many good learning nuggets that I got out of this as well. And you know, all I got to say, you're one brave woman ultimately.
Thank you so much.
You know, I think brave businesswoman.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying the ride. Listen, I'm enjoying the ride, and we have to maintain a sense of humor, right? Life is way too short. We've got to find ways to see the beauty and in the pain.
Absolutely.
You know, Brene Brown also wrote a book about, you know, the power of vulnerability. And I think there really is that connection when you actually allow yourself to open up. And you've certainly done that today. So, so much gratitude from us to you. It's been an amazing episode. And I look forward to seeing the business. What is the business going to be called? What is the business? Is it eWeddings again?
It's eWedded, where marries sustainability.
Perfect. And if somebody wants to be able to support you and jump on or read your book or listen to your podcast, where can they go?
They can go to ewedded.com. I'm actually launching a new website this week. So we're getting it set to actually turn into a marketplace. So I'll actually be I'm rolling out our new logo and new brand platform this week and our new website. So it's a good time to start following me.
Perfect. Well, we certainly will. From me, thank you very much for being here today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, you as well. I know it's evening there, so it's time for
get my wine.
For a little wine. Yeah, absolutely. And for me for us on the other side of the world, to get a little bit of sleep.
Yes,
I think you've been up for what, 26 hours straight now?
I think it's 28.
28.
28.
You're showing off.
Well, we'll be back tonight again with some group coaching. So we'll see how much I'm showing off tonight. But I'll probably I need to get a couple of hours sleep before I get back on again this afternoon. Maya, again, thank you very much. We so look forward to hearing about how eWedded is going to perform, and I think it's going to be brilliant anyway. So, you know, what you did previously, the lessons you learned, and I've got no doubt you're going to make this a success ultimately.
Appreciate the support.
Okay, Shane, and I'll speak to you a little bit later tonight, my friend.
Thank you, everybody, and see you tonight, Ibo, and stay safe and stay home. We'll see you tonight.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.